What is up? Happy Monday. Welcome into Pac-12 in review. Yes, I am Michael Caratenuto, and yes, my Twitter handle is at Diablos00. Man, well, we had the top 10 battle. College game day was up in Eugene, and I thought the Bruins, I picked the Bruins in a close one to go up there and beat the Ducks. The Ducks come out with the big win, and maybe it was crazy to pick against them in Eugene, but hey, it happens. It happens. It was, the game definitely, it lived up to the billing, and it was crazy in Eugene. Got off to an insane start or an even start, and then the Ducks, man, Bo Nix, like I said, I hammered him in the beginning of the season, and I continually keep apologizing to Bo Nix. You heard Dan Lanning, and of course, a coach is obviously going to go to bat for his players, and it's not even about talking them up. Like if they're, they're kind of, like a borderline player, like getting to the next level. But Dan Lanning's press conference and post-game presser, and just saying there's no way you can't say everything you've seen. He's not an elite quarterback, and yes, it didn't look that way against Georgia, and I know many people can say, well, Georgia does that to a lot of people, but first game of the season or not, they're both different teams now. To me, that would be a very interesting rematch just because of the way Bo Nix can run the ball on top of his insane throwing ability. So we will get to that, man. That game totally lived up to the hype. And it was it could be a rematch too. It could be a rematch of the Pac-12 championship game. Another game that was a little closer than I thought it might be, but they definitely rebounded. Did California after their loss to Colorado, but Washington came down to Berkeley to take on Cal, but the Huskies don't do much in the first half, and then kind of stayed that way in the third, but they put up 14 points in the fourth quarter in crunch time, and they hold on to beat Cal 28-21. Oregon State cruised past Colorado. I said I picked Oregon State, but 42-9 was the final there. And man, in the head scratcher game of the week, and no, not just because of my hat, Stanford beats ASU 15-14. Arizona State was up 14-6 at halftime. Stanford shut them out in the second half and just put up 9 points. Obviously, the final was 15-14, but head scratcher game of the week for me, man. Especially the way the defense balled out. And it was there was a 4th and 19. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, it was an interesting game on the farm in Palo Alto, where like I said, the Cardinal get their first conference victory. So now everybody in the conference has at least one conference win. And they get that over ASU. But now, okay, so after all that, let's take a quick look at the standings in the Pac-12, because with that win, the Ducks are the only unbeaten team in conference play. They are 4-0 and 6-1 overall. The Trojans, who had the bye, they're 4-1 and 6-1 overall. The Bruins, who fell to the Ducks, are now 3-1 in conference play, 6-1 overall. Utah also on a bye, 3-1 in conference, 5-2 overall. Oregon State and Washington, with their wins, go to 3-2 in conference play. Both of those schools 6-2 overall. Washington State and Cal, Arizona, Colorado, and Arizona State are all 1-3. So again, the Cougars, the Golden Bears, the Wildcats, the Buffaloes, the Sun Devils, and the and the Sun Devils, sorry, all 1-3. Washington State is 4-3. Cal and U of A are both 3-4. Colorado 1-6. ASU is 2-5 overall. And Stanford, the Cardinal, 1-4 now in conference play, like I said, but they are also 3-4 overall. And how did that affect the top 25 rankings? Well, Oregon is now the highest rated Pac-12 team. They jumped 2 spots after beating UCLA because last week, Oregon was 10, or UCLA was 9, Oregon was 10. So Oregon with the win jumps to number 8. So they are number 8. USC didn't play, but hey, they're actually tied for 10th. And this may have happened before. I've never took a crazy close eye on it, but USC is tied for 10th with Wake Forest, who did win this weekend. They both have 927 points in the AP poll, but they are number 10 along with Wake Forest, so tied for 10th. So Oregon 8, USC 10. UCLA dropped 3 spots, which again, losing to Oregon, not too bad. They're still lurking there at number 12. And then Utah didn't play, had a bye as well, but they managed to jump 1 spot up to 14. So we have 8, 10, 12, and 14. Both Oregon State and Washington received votes. Oregon State, quite a few more. But that being said, it is interesting because Oregon and USC, I mean, fast forward, I mean, Oregon and USC can meet up in the Pac-12 championship. USC and UCLA will play. They're both going to have 1 conference loss. Well, at least at the time they play. And for Utah, again, with the 1 conference loss as well to SC, I mean, it's awesome. The mayhem at the top, and even right there, like I said, because Washington State, the Huskies and the Beavers are right there. Now, yes, a little bit behind the 8 ball. Yes, they're going to have to do some work, but in Washington doesn't play Utah. Let me look. Washington. So they lost to ASU. They beat Arizona, beat Cal. So they do play Oregon State. So that's separator. They do play Oregon, then Colorado, then Washington State. So they don't have USC or Utah on their schedule. So they can catch up ground, but they're just rooting for, well, obviously someone else to beat UCLA, since UCLA has a tiebreaker with them head to head. But yeah, so I mean, Washington and Oregon State both play, and that game is actually in 2 weeks. Washington's got to bye this coming week. They play on November 4th. So that being said, that's their next game. So they have a bye, and then they have Oregon State November 4th. But they have Oregon State, then Oregon. They're at Oregon for that huge, obviously, Pacific Northwest rivalry game. And then they host Colorado, and then they wrap up with the Apple Cup at Wazoo. So, yeah, I mean, that Oregon State-Washington game, obviously on the 4th, and we'll get to that when we get to that, but when it comes up, but very huge for the standings. So, and one of those teams actually could catapult in, again, take one of them would be dropping out. The other one could catapult into that conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's but again, 2 top 10 teams in the Pac-12. And yeah, it was just a good weekend. Like I said, Utah, USC, Arizona, and what was it, Washington State? Yeah, USC, Utah, Arizona, and Washington State all had byes this last weekend. But let's get to it. Let's get to the review. In Eugene, College Game Day was there early. There was students and fans out there at 4 a.m. local time, because you got to figure College Game Day starts at what, 10 a.m. 9 a.m. Yeah, 9 a.m. on the East Coast, Eastern. So it's 6 o'clock up in Eugene. And yeah, there was a toga party going on. It was an insane atmosphere, of course, and it was capped off. I always got to give a shout out to the man Lee Corso, and when he does the the mascot putting on the headgear of the team, and he was trying to bait the duck like he was picking UCLA, and he said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Give me that," and he puts on the duck. He held a live duck again. Just insane, crazy atmosphere. I love it. I love the atmosphere in Eugene. Anyway, like I said, it's been a minute since I've been there, but yes, always insane for a game day, and especially it's a success Oregon has had when they're ranked, what they're doing now, but just energy on football game day, and then college game day was there too. So that was awesome. The Bruins came in, though, not lacking any confidence. Chip Kelly's squad, like I said, just on a roll, undefeated coming in to the week, had big Pac-12 wins over Washington, over Washington, and then Colorado, then Washington, and then Utah. And then they go on the bye and get to kind of take a breath and come into Oregon and play this game. And it was a very, like I said, it was a very insane game. When you look at it, I'm going to start with, obviously, UCLA, the road team. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I talked about him last week, saying this young man, along with Caleb Williams, even Cam Rising, in that very top echelon of Heisman Trophy talk. And again, even with one loss, DTR is still there. 27 for 39. Very solid. 262 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns. He threw 1 interception on the game. And his performance, well, again, not very solid. I mean, obviously the interception, not solid. And Brian Addison for the Ducks had the interception. But yeah, I mean, just the way he played, and there were some plays there. They made some plays. They, again, kept Oregon on their toes. I mean, it was definitely a little bit of a heavyweight boxing match. Both teams trying to staying in the middle of the ring, throwing haymakers. And at the end of the one, everybody was like, wow, we might not get the amount of points I thought, because it was 3-3 at the end of the first. Well, Oregon had a scoring fiesta in the second. They put up 28. UCLA put up 10. So it was 31-13 at halftime. Then in the third quarter, UCLA just puts up a field goal, and Oregon Oregon outscored them 7-3. They get the touchdown there. So it's 38-16 going into the fourth. UCLA did outscore the Ducks in the fourth, 14-7. The unfortunate thing, obviously, for Bruins fans is they were down. But 45-30 is the final score. Had a chance to be a one-score game. And UCLA had a touchdown. There's a play. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was pressured a little bit, and they ended up not getting the score. And I think it was turnover on. Was that the turnover on downs? That was, I want to say, a turnover on downs. But either way, they didn't get it. So Oregon wins 45-30. But one of the keys of the game, I said, man, Chip Kelly is going to pound Zach Charbonnet. He's definitely going to do it, or he's going to attempt to do it because he wants to control the clock. And yes, with what Bo Nix and the Oregon offense has been doing, keep him off field. Zach Charbonnet, if you watch the game, 20 carries for 151 yards, 7.6 yards per touch, 1 rushing touchdown. I mean, they had 30 rushing plays to 39 pass plays. And in those 30 carries, it was 30 for 186 yards. Granted, 20 and 151 from Charbonnet. And this young man, look, I mean, it becomes a quarterback, a best quarterback award, the Heisman. And yes, quarterbacking is important, but tell me what Zach Charbonnet has done all year that this young man couldn't be taking away Heisman votes from his quarterback, but taking away Heisman votes from a lot of the quarterbacks, what he's done, what this Bruins team has done. And again, every week, teams knowing they're going to get a heavy dose of Zach Charbonnet, and yet 20 for 151, 7.6 against an Oregon defense that is obviously fast, very good, and he does it again. And you look at what UCLA did, you're like, okay, they put up 30. Granted, yes, they have 45, but you're like, when you hear these numbers and you're like, huh. And then, okay, that's Charbonnet. Jake Bobo, good to see him back. 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. Keegan Jones, 3 catches for 49 yards for Jones, and also the other receiving touchdown from DTR. So, but I like the way, again, UCLA in that first quarter, again, kind of both teams, I won't say like crazy playing it safe, but feeling each other out. Defense is not giving up any big plays. And you thought, okay, Chip Kelly's liking this, his, they haven't put up the crazy points yet, but you held Oregon to 3, you have 3, you're good. Then the game was tied at 10 in the second quarter. And, pardon me. I was looking at a note. My bad. Apologies. But no, I mean, 3-3 into the first, and then you get that huge explosion, in the second quarter from the Ducks, but you're still in it. You need to come out in the third and do something, and UCLA just couldn't. So you figure 438 total yards. Yeah, 438 total yards for the Bruins. Pretty good day. Granted, they're averaging over 500 yards, but still solid day. 438 yards. Your quarterback throws for 2 touchdowns. You have a 150-yard rusher, and you have a 100-yard receiver. You're thinking, if you're a Bruins fan, there's no way we don't win this game. Well, let's flip the coin, because some of the stuff that Oregon was able to do, I mean, look, Bo Nix, like I said, the first thing I'm going to say, that deep ball, that teardrop that he sent to Troy Franklin, you have got to be kidding me. Like, that was a bomb, A. And B, it was just absolutely sick how the defender, I mean, was, again, about a step behind, and they're running, and you see this ball just drop into Franklin. It was an insane throw and catch. And I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment and say it was the throw and catch of the year, but accuracy-wise, it may have been the most accurate deep ball throw and catch this season in college football. It was insane, and he just put it on a rainbow rope, and actually more so a laser, but still, it just goes up and drops into Franklin's hands in stride for that one touchdown, and the crowd in Eugene, rightfully so, erupted. But Dan Lanning's game plan worked. I mean, look at this. Bo Nix, 22 for 28, right? Of those 22 completions, 5 of those went for touchdowns. 22 and 28, 283 yards. Like I said, the 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, quarterback rating of 96.3. But then you go to the rushing. And Zach Charbonnet, like I said, 20 for 151. Bucky Irving, right there as well. 19 carries for 107 yards. No touchdowns, but average 5.6 per carry. 19 for 107. Noah Whittington had 12 for 73 as well. And you got to look a lot when they got up. Again, you're going to get more running plays. I get it. But still, even when it was in the balance, they were running the ball. But like I said, Whittington, 12 for 73. Bo Nix, again, he ran when he had to. There's a few times plays broke down. A few were called, but a few times plays broke down, but still 8 carries for 51 yards, 6.4 a carry. And then Jordan James had 3 touches for 7 yards and the rushing touchdown. And then, but still, 46 run plays, 28 pass plays. In those 46 rushing plays, 262 yards, averaging 5.7 per carry. And I mean, UCLA still 30 for 186, are averaging 6.2 a carry. You're thinking, yes, it is college football, but how can both offenses gouge that much? And you see, and you're still like, how can the team lose that averages 6.2 yards per carry? I mean, it is insane. Settling for field goal, getting field goals when you need touchdowns. That's the difference. And the UCLA defense, overstate the obvious, was tested. But man, like I said, Bo Nix, what he did, I mean, just the plays, the touchdown pass to Troy Franklin, just an absolute beauty. And I will say this too, Keegan Jones's touchdown. This young man, I mean, UCLA has speed. I mean, I know I've talked about Zach Charbonnet and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Keegan Jones is a young man that literally, he just can't. It was a beautifully designed play by Chip Kelly because, again, the linebacker responsible for covering Keegan Jones literally was about 4 or 5 steps inside where he should have been. The line goes one way. DTR is faking a handoff like it's going to go to the left. And all of a sudden he fakes the handoff and Jones, turns and like pauses. The linebacker's going. Jones just pauses for a second, leaks out to the right, and DTR, after the fake, just turns, zips it over to Jones. And there was a guy that was kind of even with him. Yeah, when I say kind of even, like thought he may have had a chance. The second Jones turned upfield, he was gone. So again, this UCLA team not out of it, but hats off, like I said, to Dan Lanning, the Ducks. Again, when you have somebody like that, 22 or 28, an accurate day, but still 22 completions, and 5 of those 22 are for touchdowns. Yeah, any coach will take that in any day of the week. The Ducks, no sacks on the day, but did have 3 tackles for losses. And no sacks this is crazy. No sacks for the Bruins either. They also had 3 tackles for losses. Again, the interception by Brian Addison was the only interception of the game. But yeah, besides that, just again, a solid. The one thing I was going to say too is the penalties. I mean, overall, not bad. UCLA had 6 for 65. Again, not great. Oregon had 8 for 50. So, I mean, you figure what? That's 2 a quarter for Oregon, which, again, you're not looking to do, but not terribly bad. And obviously with only 6, so like what? like 1.5, basically a quarter for UCLA. And UCLA with the one turnover, neither team lost a fumble. The one thing I did find interesting, the yards per pass play, UCLA's is at 6.7, Oregon's at 10.1. But yeah, like I said, UCLA 448 total yards, right? Oregon had 545. So again, it's just, and you think, oh, no defense was played, but yeah, it was a phenomenal chess match. This is a game that, like I said, could be a rematch for the Pac-12 championship with what I said with the standings as we go forward. So, but man, I mean, the Ducks, look, they asserted themselves still. And again, both they're up to number 8. You keep winning, and I mean, I'll get to what they have coming up matchup at the end of the show when we get ready for Friday. But if they can keep winning, again, they would have to still figure out their kryptonite in Utah, in which they tough times last year. I'm not trying to put salt on a wound, Ducks fans. You look phenomenal, but I'm just saying, like, you're gonna have to get over that chess match, that challenge of Utah. So, but yeah, the Ducks are rolling, man. For Dan Lanning, obviously, congrats to them on that win. Bo Nix, like I said, looking elite, and Dan Lanning said it. There's no way you can't say he's an elite quarterback, and it's not from just this performance. Dan Lanning's talking about from the beginning of the season, even that Georgia game, from Georgia through UCLA, what he has done, the strides the offense has taken, what they've been able to do in general. Bo Nix being the ringleader as the quarterback for that, the puppet master, as you might want to say. And man, he is pulling all the right strings because he has looked absolutely amazing. And in the showdown with Dorian Thompson-Robinson of the Bruins, absolutely phenomenal. So, hey, we're going to step aside, get to that Washington-Cal game next, and also Oregon State and Colorado and ASU Stanford coming up here on Pac-12 in review. All right, we are back here on Pac-12 Interview. Yes, I am Michael Caracinito at Diablo00 on Twitter here on the Sideline Sports Network. But yeah, what a first game of the of review. Oregon UCLA battle of top 10s up in Eugene, and hey, at home, a home field advantage worked out. But the way Oregon played, again, 545 yards, that'll play anywhere, right, fans, college football fans, as we know. So it's one of those things where it's one of those things where you can't obviously, rest with what you did. So a lot of football ahead of them, but staying undefeated in the Pac-12 and in the race to get to the championship game. Our next game we are going to touch on, is the Washington Huskies taking on the California Golden Bears. The Huskies get the 28-21 victory over Cal to improve to 6-2 overall. And again, the 2 conference losses. So they open up conference play real quick with Washington beat Stanford 40-22. Then they lost to UCLA 40-32, lost to ASU 45-38, then turn it around the last 2 weeks. beat Arizona 49-39, then beat Cal 28-21 to go to 3-2 in conference play. And like I said, 6-2 overall for the Huskies is where they are at. So 28-21, they get the victory. And Cal, again, I mean, you look at this, and Washington's up 6-0 at the end of the first and at halftime. Nobody scored in the second quarter. And there's a few punts. I'm not going to say sloppy watching the game. I'm not going to say sloppiness. Just defense making plays. Yes, some plays were missed. I'm not going to sit here and not, you know me, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Some plays were missed. But that being said, it's one of those things where offenses still have the chance. Defenses were making plays. So again, I'm not going to say, oh, it's terrible football because of that. It's just no score in the second quarter. So we go to locker room 6-0 in favor of the visiting Huskies as they were at Berkeley. Then the third quarter, well, Cal explodes. They get the 2 touchdowns. They have 14 points. Washington scores 8. So we go to the fourth quarter all tied up at 14. Very exciting. We're like, all right, finally, offense is finally getting stuff going. Well, then in the fourth quarter, Washington, they put up 14 points. Cal able to get in the end zone once. The Huskies therefore win 28-21. But looking at Michael Penix Jr., another 50 attempt passing night, 51 pass plays called. And look, Kellen DeBoer has done a phenomenal job up at Washington his first year taking over. And like I said, 6-2 overall, 3-2 in conference play. Undefeated in non-conference play. So he has a quarterback. Defense is, like I said, is the one thing they're going to have to work on. Again, only giving up 21 points. Pretty solid. But, I mean, the balance between passing and running. You have Michael Penix Jr., 36 for 51. 374 yards passing for this young man. 374. Threw 2 touchdowns, no picks. Solid night. In comparison, for Cal, Jack Plummer, 21 for 34, 245 yards, and 3 passing touchdowns for Plummer. So, again, you look at that, but still, Michael Penix Jr. for the Huskies, another 50 attempt game, and he's obviously on no pitch count. All kidding aside, but still, he's having a very solid year. Rushing-wise, again, 51 pass plays called, 32 run plays called. I'd like to maybe bridge that gap a little more, but Cam Davis, 13 carries for 46 yards. Wayne Talapapa, 4 carries for 25 yards. Richard Newton, 5 for 18. Cam Davis had 13 for 46 and the 1 rushing touchdown that the Huskies had. Yeah. That was Cam Davis's 13 for 46 and 1 touchdown. And then, Richard Newton, 5 for 18. But overall, 32 carries for 102 yards. Michael Penix Jr. had 3 for minus 14 because the Bears, and you drop back 51 times. The Bears had 2 sacks. And again, I mean, dropping back 51 times, that's amazing that the Huskies, I mean, you're just having the action brought to you in pass blocking. But that being said, 2 sacks and 2 tackles for losses. Cal only had 2 sacks and 2 tackles for losses and only 1 quarterback hurry in 51 dropbacks from Michael Penix Jr. This young man transferring, again, it is benefiting him because I just think that Washington again is right there now is lurking there in the Pac-12 race, can still get to the championship game. They do have a bye this coming week, like I said, and they take on Oregon State November 4th. in Corvallis. So they're right there. But this young man to be able to do this at such a high level. And yeah, the ASU game, again, they lost in Tempe. And Washington, no matter who's coach, no matter who's playing, Washington is 0-8 in their last 8 visits to Tempe. It's different when the Sun Devils go up to UW, but nonetheless, hey, the Huskies 0-8 down here in Tempe. But yeah, I digress to this game. Michael Penix Jr. is climbing that ladder. Not only is he keeping them in the Pac-12 race, they're obviously, with this win, bowl eligible now. And you would think climbing the ladder to better bowls. Again, can they get to the Pac-12 championship game? Yes. Since they're not playing USC or Utah, it's again a kind of rooting for other teams in a way to help them get there. So it again, interesting in that. But for this game, like you said, Michael Penix Jr. definitely the star. Receiving wise, Jalen McMillan had 8 catches for 81 yards and one of the 2 receiving touchdowns. Rome Odunze, 6 for 63. Devin Colt, 5 for 44. Wayne Talapapa, remember getting in on it too. 4 catches for 40 yards, a first down a catch. You'll take that any days of the week as a player, coach, whatever. Jake Westover had 4 for 37. Richard Newton had 1 catch for 36 yards, and that was his long for a touchdown. And Richard Newton, again, the running back, but still, it is very nice when obviously talking about backs receiving skills, but still 1 for 36 and the touchdown. So for Washington, and yeah, 36 receptions for 374 yards, averaging 10.4 per. Again, Washington didn't lose any fumbles. And defensively, the Huskies, well, we know they could do this. They put up 5 sacks and 9 tackles for losses. And Cal had 2 of each of those, but still 5 sacks by the Huskies. And again, this is a team that is over 20 sacks on the season. I want to say 23, but with that, maybe 24. We'll get to that Friday. That's for preview. But still, 5 sacks in this game and 9 tackles for losses for the Huskies. And you look at Justin Wilcox and Cal, what they want to do, obviously, Jack Plummer wanting to bounce back from that loss at Colorado. Again, Colorado's first conference win. Wanted to bounce back. And like I said, he did 21 of 34. Solid day there. 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Running wise, DeCarlos Brooks had 10 carries for 43 yards. Jaden Ott, they tried to get him going. 14 carries for 38 yards. Damian Moore, 2 for 8. Plummer, though, 5 for negative 28 yards. So, and those are the sacks, the 5 sacks. So that played, again, in a 7-point victory for Washington or a 7-point loss for Cal. How you're looking, we're talking about Cal. That plays a lot in it. Again, taking somebody out of maybe possible field goal range. Then you go from attempting a field goal, getting a field goal, to having a punt. And again, neither quarterback threw an interception. But yeah, you can't, 5 for negative 28. So 31 carries for 61 yards, obviously 2 yards a carry. And no rushing touchdowns for the Bears. Receiving wise, though, J. Michael Sturdivant, 8 catches for 104 yards. 2 of the 3 Plummer touchdowns went to Sturdivant. 13 yards a catch. And then Maven Anderson had 3 catches, 53 yards, and the 1 touchdown. Mason Starling, 4 for 49. Again, overall, 21 receptions, 245 yards, 11.7 per reception. And even more than Washington's 10.4. And then the 3 receiving touchdowns. Anderson did have a fumble, but Cal did recover. And again, like I said, defensively, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses, no interceptions. And again, no like kickoff or punt return touchdowns. So yeah, the game was it was a battle. And you look at Penix throwing, like I said, 51 times. They do get the 7-point victory. But man, again, they're gonna have to show more consistency on offense in 2 weeks against Oregon State. I definitely will say that much. But yeah, for Cal, and I mean consistency, that was the word. When you looked at preseason breakdown of Cal, like people very high on the quarterback play, what the quarterback play of Jack Plummer could be. And again, we've seen it, but it's about consistency. Can you not just often sustain drives, but just sustain momentum, complementary wins. And Cal's to me is right there on the cusp. I mean, you talk about, the 1 and 3 teams in conference play, because Cal's one of them, and they're 3 and 4 now. But to me, they're right there on the cusp, and it's going to be the consistency, building blocks off that. Because again, watching this game, I like what they did defensively. They were challenging. It was challenging for the Huskies, and what they were doing defensively, and again, to take just an air raid of the ball being sprayed all over, 51 attempts, like I said, but. When we look at it, and it's and penalty wise too in this game, Cal only had 2 for 15. That's what that in my notes. I was like, wow, this in all aspects of the game is a Cal victory. But getting shut down rushing like that, the 5 Washington sacks, with the penalty aspect of the game and how they hung around with Penix, again, like I said, throwing 51 times. But the Huskies had 9 for 65 yards. So, I mean, over 2 penalties a quarter, and you needed those 5 sacks because at time you're extending drives. 476 total yards for the Huskies, who again have been around 500 all year, and 306 for Cal. Again, rushing wise, it was just 32 rushing attempts and 3.2 yards. Oh no, that was for 31 rushing attempts, 2 yards per carry. And the sacks had a lot to do with that for Cal. So look, I think they're right there on the cusp, but from this point of season on, if you're Justin Wilcox, you need to close games out. You need that. Again, and I say consistency, and people say, oh, well, easier, oh yeah, and you keep saying consistency, but yeah, it's not making those mistakes. It's not, giving up those 5 sacks, giving up a sack, not even 5, but giving up a sack in a key time to where, man, now instead of, say 2nd and 4, we now got a 12, 15-yard loss. We had a 15-yard loss. So now we're at 3rd and 19, 3rd and 20. So those are the things that, again, Cal can build off of, because you're toe-to-toe with Washington right there after a bad loss, like I said, to Colorado. And again, no disrespect to Colorado, but it's kind of you would have thought Cal would have won that game in Boulder. But yeah, but with what Kellen DeBoer is doing, this Washington team, I think what they can do offensively, you definitely don't want to see them. If you're going to play them in the Pac-12 championship game, you definitely don't want to see them there. In my opinion, because offensively, look, they can keep pace with anybody, and they're not giving up the sacks on Michael Penix Jr. They are keeping this young man clean and upright, as coaches like to say. So, but Washington, hey, gets 28-21 victory. I did get that one right. Over Cal. And again, they're still cruising around. They're still trying to see Cal can play more. So spoiler of anything, but it's just one of those things. But the next game we are going to get to, yes, is the Arizona State Stanford game. The Arizona State Stanford game, and the Sun Devils and the Cardinal. I mean, what can you say? 15-14 was the final. ASU did not score at all in the second half when they seemed to be. Emory Jones came back off of leaving the Washington game. Obviously, they had the bye last week and, was in concussion protocol, but he cleared everything, was practicing all last week leading up to the game. And it's it's one of those things where when we look at it, ASU doesn't score in the second half, but yeah, for Emory Jones, they said practicing looking good, came out looking good, and first half goes well. Put up, you're up 14-6, get a touchdown in each of the first and second quarter. So for a return, turns out very well. And then the Cardinal, they score 9 points in the second half, 3 in the third, 6 in the fourth, and they win it by 1. And yeah, I mean, for interim head coach Sean Aguano, I mean, one of his quotes after the game was, if you only give it 15 points, you shouldn't lose a college football game. And I tend to agree. Even in defense, defensive slugfest, you figure if your defense, especially on the road, you hold the home team to 15 points. But I mean, you look at Emory Jones, 14 of 25, 227 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have 1 interception. Tanner McKee, I mean, he sprayed the ball over the field last year, but didn't throw a touchdown last year. Didn't throw a touchdown this year. Listen to this: 33 of 57 for McKee, 320 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. I mean, 57 attempts. And the ASU secondary literally did, 320 yards, but you said 57 attempts for McKee. Actually, then there was a trick play because there was 58 attempts on the game, but 58 pass plays to just 25 run plays. The ASU defense, we had Chris Cartman on Friday, needed to answer it and said, yeah, defensively, Stanford was down some guys, but offensively, they still wanted to, try and run the ball. But I mean, Casey Filkins, 8 carries for 48 yards. Caleb Robinson, 5 for 26. And I mean, Tanner McKee had 9 for -7 yards. But still, 25 rushing plays called for 78 yards, 3.1 per carry, and no rushing touchdowns. And you look at receiving wise, John Humphreys, 8 catches for 90 yards. Benjamin Urosek, 10 catches for 78 yards. Elijah Higgins, 6 for 73. Bryce Tremaine, 5 for 60. So, I mean, you look at it, you're like, okay, well, if they're that desperate in passing, ASU must have been up. ASU stopping the run. But Stanford did have the 1 interception. Like I said, Lavaney DeMooney had the interception for the Cardinal. But yeah, I mean, you look at it and it's I mean, Joshua Carty, Stanford's MVP, he was 5 for 5 on field goals. He scored all their points. His longest was from 47 yards. So the Sun Devils hold the Cardinal out of the end zone, and they score. They get in the end zone twice, but that was it. And again, you got to – again, laying an egg in the second half, the Cardinal defense, who was banged up, as we talked about, had a lot to do with that. But, I mean, like I said, Emory Jones, 14 to 25, 227 yards, 1 touchdown, the 1 interception. Rushing-wise, Valade, say, yeah, get him going. 18 carries, 76 yards, had a rushing touchdown. And then Emory Jones, 9 carries for 27 yards. They only got touched the ball 7 times, but for 25 yards. Receiving-wise, Elijah Badgerman. I mean, this was the feature story to the game, in a way, for ASU, because 6 catches, 118 yards. This young man has been, again, just having more command of the, of his route tree, like Chris Carvin's talking about, the playbook, the route tree, everything coming on. 6 catches for Badger. Emory Jones, love going to him. 6 catches for 118 yards, 19.7 per reception. And then the 1 touchdown, the passing touchdown from Emory Jones. Brian Thompson, he's been coming on too. 3 catches for 55 yards. Giovanni Sanders, 2 for 41. But yeah, 14 receptions for 227 yards, 16.2 yards per reception. To Stanford's, 9.7, which again, not bad, but still 16.2. Emory Jones had a fumble, didn't lose it. ASU had 4 sacks and 6 quarterback hurries, or 6 tackles for losses, pardon me. But they did have 4 sacks, 6 tackles for losses. Stanford had 4 sacks as well, but 10 tackles for losses. So again, defensively making plays, but yeah, it's just a frustrating second half for the Sun Devils. And the Cardinal, again, 5 field goals is what beat you. You don't let a team score a touchdown. And that, I mean, again, any level, doesn't matter. People say, oh, Stanford this and that, or oh, Pac-12. No. You don't get to say that. You don't get to talk out of both sides of your mouth, because if your team did it, you'd be, against some cream puff. You might be saying the same thing. And Stanford, obviously, very far, very, 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 very far from a cream puff. But the Devils, again, fall to 2-5 overall now, 1-3 in conference play. David Shaw and the Cardinal, 3-4 and 1-4 in conference play. But yeah, I mean, look, a healthy mix of Valade and even Ngata in the rushing game, and Badger, if he can get, again, and even Thompson in the passing game. These games ASU can win, but now they want to become bowl eligible, which I think would be, again, very huge for the team to say, oh, well, 6 wins, everybody's bowl eligible. No, but getting to that point, if they can get to that, that would be very huge, especially for development of some of these other guys, because that extra 3 weeks of practice, or 12 practices, whatever it is, 10 to 12 practices, they are just huge in growth. So, but yeah, 15-14, hey, the Cardinal get the win, get their first conference win. And that is, again, that is what we are. Everybody now has at least 1 win in conference play, which, again, yes, we're not just celebrating 1 win. And the last game to get to real quick, Oregon State just absolutely blasted Colorado, 42-9. Colorado didn't score in the first or fourth. Oregon State held them off the board, and they got the field goal in the second and 2 more. And then they went for a 2-point conversion, didn't get it, but they got a touchdown in the third. But yeah, for Oregon State, 7 in the first, 14 in the second and third, and then 7 in the fourth. So there's your 42 points. Ben Gulbranson, again, still filling in. Look at this, 14-22. Very accurate, very solid day. 2 touchdowns for Gulbranson. Damian Martinez, this young man, 22 carries for 178 yards. 8.1 per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns for Mr. Martinez. Again, 44 run plays called to just 22 pass plays. Yeah, Justin Smith figured, hey, you know what? Colorado might be struggling. Let's give Gulbranson some confidence. You go 14 for 22, don't throw a pick, 2 touchdowns. That works out well. And Martinez, when he's running like that, again, 22 of the 44 carries, 178 yards. Hats off to you, young man. Martinez and Charbonnet, the co-players of the week. If I'm picking players of the week, Martinez and Charbonnet are the co-players of the week in the Pac-12. Receiving wise, Jack Velling, 1 catch for 60 yards and a touchdown. Silas Bolden, 1 for 16 and the other touchdown from Gulbranson. But Tyjon Lindsey at 4 for 45 as well. Ben Gulbranson did fumble, and they lost a fumble. Terrence Long, Colorado had 3 fumbles, and they lost 2 of them. Oregon State, 2 fumbles, but they recovered both of them. So, again, the turnover battle there. Oregon State had 1 sack and 5 tackles for losses, as did Colorado. But, yeah, Oregon State controlled the game, and the Beavers are rolling. And they get, like I said, they get that win 42-9, but 270 total rushing yards for Oregon State. And, yeah, just quickly, I mean, it was 472 total yards for Oregon, 290 for Colorado. So, yeah, not going to win you too many games. Penalty battle. The Beavers, I know Coach Champ, we have 10 for 87. Colorado did have 5 for 62. Again, you never have it with a penalty, but 10 of them. Ooh, that's again the cologne of winning covers up a lot of stuff. But the 10 for 67, I know. Again, Coach is never going to be happy with everything, but 42-9, the Beavers get the win over Cal, and now. Yeah, so Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Oregon State all get the wins this week. And, man, it was interesting. Like I said, that top 10 matchup lived to it. The ASU game is the biggest head scratcher. Washington, I mean, in a way, Cal earned hanging around, but Washington letting Cal hang around. And then Oregon State, like I said, dominating. And that is where we are. So the games we will be previewing on Friday in the Pac-12 in week 9 of college football. Oh, so Thursday night, big Thursday night matchup. Well, we'll review that. I forgot that was Thursday. I thought it was Friday night. But anyway, so Thursday night, Utah is number 14. Utah is up at Washington State. Going up to the Palouse are the Utes, and that is at 7 p.m., 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on Fox Sports 1. So that is Thursday night. We'll talk about that. We'll review that Friday. Preview-wise, on Saturday, the 29th of October, Oregon, number 8, Oregon is, well, they're going down to the farm. Or no, they're going down to Berkeley to take on Cal. And that is a 3:30. Well, we'll get to kickoff then. I won't get time then. But, yeah, Oregon State is at Cal. USC is headed down to Tucson to take on Arizona. Both teams coming off bye, so both teams, again, little mix and bruises healing up. We'll see what happens there if Caleb Williams can keep his just insane pace at quarterback play going in the Pac-12 as the Trojans head to Tucson to take on the Wildcats. And the Sun Devils, they will stay on the road. They will host the Buffaloes of Colorado. Or no, sorry, I said they'll stay on the road and host. I want to see if you're awake still. Arizona State will travel to Boulder to take on Colorado, take on the Buffaloes on Saturday. And Stanford, the Cardinal, I'm going to go on a limb. In a preview, I'm going to go on a limb now and say crazy prediction. If they only kick 5 field goals, they're not beating UCLA. Stanford is traveling a little bit down, the Pacific Coast Highway, you could say. But, yeah, they're traveling to Southern California to take on UCLA, the Bruins, in Pasadena. So we'll get to all those Friday. Again, it'll be a review of Utah and Washington State. Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on Fox Sports 1. So those are the games there. I want to thank everybody at Sideline Sports, my guy JB Ellis, Eric Wilson, my brother, for obviously helping hook aesthetics and making me, well, it's impossible to make me look good, but Eric does a hell of a job of it. And everybody at Sideline Sports, again, check us out beyond tonight. The Sports Arena, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock here on the left coast. So check that out. But going to get out of here. I'll see you guys tonight. But I will also see you Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. here Pacific on Pac-12 preview for the games coming up next weekend. So everybody have a great Monday, and I will see you Friday here on the Sideline Sports Network.